to start, make a little bit of physical and mental space for yourself and lay down on your back, have your legs long, your arms by your sides. And if that position's uncomfortable, then have your feet standing or adjust however you need so that you can be as comfortable as possible. And then take your time to bring your attention to what you're feeling right now. Notice if there's any layers to your feeling, if you have your prominent focus, and then you might get a sense that there's something just kind of behind the curtain. These lessons are called awareness through movement, but of course they're not movement lessons. And I don't really think that they're awareness lessons either. I think the awareness is something that comes at the end of the story, and the lessons are part of the beginning of the story. So I've been thinking that it's more like a noticing practice. And if you're well practiced already at noticing, then you might find the work for you is noticing the way that you notice. You always notice in the same way. Do you notice the same things? And whether you're new to Feldenkrais method or been doing it for a long time, we all have this process of trying to not run to the end, to get to the point, to figure out the thing. So as we get going, if you find that you're agitated or you're sleepy, or in some way you're trying to get out of the present moment situation, don't fight with yourself. Just acknowledge what's going on. Maybe you tag out. Maybe you come back. What do you notice about the way that you're breathing? Does your breathing paint any kind of picture for you about how you are mentally or emotionally, and also how you are shaped? And see if you can start to explore the sense of shape of your rib cage just by the gentle way that you're breathing right now. Maybe your breath is some kind of molding clay, and you're starting to actually shape the front of your chest, the sides of your chest. Maybe you start to shape your abdomen a little bit, sides of your abdomen, the bottom of your abdomen. And notice what it's like for you. What happens to your sense of your whole self when you focus your attention like this? And now change your attention and notice the way that you're resting on the floor. And maybe in a way you can get a sense that your body is being molded into the floor. Here we have the advantage of our little mats, so you actually have some give into the floor, but maybe if you're on a blanket or on a carpet, you get the same idea. And notice the way that the floor supports you and how that's different in different parts of yourself. And now see, when you bring your attention back to your breathing again, does your breathing seem like it's something that's kind of separate from your feeling on the ground? Or is it somehow integrated or incorporated? Now bring your attention to your nostrils. And here in Chiang Mai, of course, the air is quite humid and kind of weirdly cool. And so you might really get a sense of that quality, the quality of the air in your nostrils. It might be a little less clear for those of you in another place. So just see if you notice any kind of difference in the way that the air is coming in one of your nostrils and the other nostril. And then start to follow the journey of your air from the end of your nose into the back of your nostrils and into the back of your throat. And then what happens? Where does it go next? Bring your attention to the right side of your chest, right up at the top by your collarbone. And sense the top crease of your armpit. And see what it feels like to start to direct your breathing from your nostrils into your throat and then over to that upper right compartment. Notice the front of your chest and the side, and also get a sense of the back of your chest. Maybe you have some image of your shoulder blade in the back. And how do you utilize that space? How do you experience expansion in that area? And then move your attention over to the upper left-hand corner of your chest and see what's different there when you start to mold that space with your breathing. Upper crease of your armpit, outer edge of your collarbone, inner border of your sternum. What changes about the feeling of your tongue in your mouth when you start to expand into the upper left side of your chest? And which side does it feel more comfortable to breathe on? And then rest your attention. Maybe zoom out Feel your whole self again resting on the floor. And get a more global sense of how you're breathing. Now turn your head to the right as far as you can without any kind of strain in your neck. And keep your head turned to the right so that it's not a tilting of your head, it's that your nose is really turned to the right and you're kind of resting toward your right ear on the floor. I mean, not literally, but in that direction. And there's a very distinct difference in the two sides of your neck. Yeah. And then see there, does that have any influence on the feeling of your breathing? And then check, how is that different from when your face is turned very clearly to the left? Which side of your upper chest is clear with your head in this position? And then bring your head back to the middle and tilt it back a little bit so your throat is really open, your chin is lifted a bit toward the ceiling. How does that head posture influence your breathing? Try not to keep your teeth pressed together. Try to keep your lips soft. And notice the excursion in through your nostrils, into the back of your throat. And then what happens next? Where does your breathing go? And then try the opposite. Tuck your chin down towards your throat. And what do you discover here? Do you recognize yourself in any sort of combination of those head positions? Now this time interlace your fingers behind your head. And try to do this as gently as possible. Have your elbows forward and use your hands to lift your head away from the floor, just your head, just your skull, so that your chin is down again like it just was. Except now you'll probably feel a little bit more pressure of your upper back or part of your shoulders on the floor. And try to really let yourself lean into the floor. And keep your head lifted a comfortable amount and see what changes about your breathing in this position. And then bring your head down, rest your arms, rest your brain. Notice your contact with the floor again. Go back to the image of being supported by the floor, letting yourself be contoured into the floor. And some of you might start to get the sense that something's changing a little bit. Now bring your arms out to the left and the right, the height of your shoulders, and stand your feet. And find the way that you can press into your feet and lift your pelvis and keep your pelvis lifted without it straining in your back or your belly. You don't have to keep it up there a long time. Maybe you just keep it up there a little bit and then bring it back down. If it's easy for you, you keep it lifted. But notice with your pelvis lifted how your weight shifts on your upper back and on your shoulders. And see if you can start to match the pressure of your upper back, the resistance of your upper back into the floor. See if you can match that with your breathing. Press into the resistance of the floor. at the level of your upper back. And think about molding the shape of your back ribs, right? Some of your back ribs are lifted, some are pressing in the floor. So see if as you're lightly pressing into the resistance of the floor at the top part of your ribs, if you can also listen for the sense of the ribs that are lower down. And then rest your pelvis down if you're not already. Just take a pause for a second. And then as we keep going and I start to offer you a little bit more complicated or sophisticated possibilities, keep in mind that this is a noticing practice. So you're not here to accomplish anything or nail a position. So if you find that a position I'm suggesting isn't comfortable, then adjust it so it is comfortable and you can still pay attention. Okay. So your feet are standing, and now interlace your fingers behind your head again. Have your elbows forward so that your arms are like a swing or a sling. So that when you're elevating your head, you really have a structure, that your hands are a structure that's molding to your head to elevate your head. Yeah. So again, you'll lift your pelvis a comfortable amount and keep it lifted. And notice how your body weight is pressing down into the floor at the area of your shoulders, your upper back. And then really lightly elevate your head and see if you turn your elbows and your head just slightly to the right. If you can start to feel a little bit more pressure somewhere around your right shoulder blade. And whatever that pressure is like, start to meet that pressure with your breathing. If it doesn't work for you to have your pelvis lifted, you can do this with your pelvis on the floor and just little lift of your head and a little turn of your head. If you're struggling or straining somewhere, it's definitely going to distract your attention. So it's much better to just imagine a movement or do much less than you can do so you can keep your attention the actual practice. Yeah. And then rest with that for a moment if you haven't already. And continue to go at your own timing so that you'll lift your head, and this time you'll turn your head and be lifting your head a little bit to the left, just enough that you can feel the difference of pressure on the left side of your spine toward your left shoulder blade, really kind of toward the top of your shoulder blade. And then again, if it's comfortable, if it's easy for you to have your pelvis lifted, it's just going to increase that pressure, right? And try to match the pressure of how you're leaning on your shoulder with your breathing. Try to be honest with yourself about where you can reduce the effort. And of course, the more practiced you are at noticing, the more you realize, oh, I'm kind of pressing in my tongue. Oh, I'm kind of tightening in my feet, right? See what you can notice. Okay. And then let that all go. Bring your arms down. Bring your pelvis and your legs down. Sense your contact with the floor again. Now stand your right foot. Bring your left arm up alongside your head somewhere that it's comfortable. And then you're going to roll yourself onto your left side. And if that doesn't work, you've got your cushions nearby. You could have your head on a cushion instead of on your arm. You have your head on the floor if you prefer that. And see if you can keep your right foot standing. So you're on your left side, but your right foot is still standing. You got to kind of negotiate how to have your knee pointing. You just find what works for your pelvis and your back in that situation. And if you can have your right foot standing behind your left leg, then you do that. And again, if that doesn't work, you change it. So that mostly you can start to bring your attention to your left, the left side of you, left side of your ribs, right? And first, just resting as you are, notice whatever part of the side of your ribs are pressing the floor already the most, and direct your attention there and start to meet or match the floor with the pressure of your breathing into that place, the left side of your ribs. If your balance is precarious at all, bend your left knee so you have a little more surface area of yourself on the floor. You can have your right hand standing in front of you if that's helpful. Because you want to be able to give your weight as fully to the floor as possible, right? And then you might just choose to stay here on your left side, enjoying or sensing what's happening on the left side of your ribs. And if you want to start looking at a few more details, then take your right arm, put it up and over the top of your head, and hold on to the left side of your face, left ear, left temple, whatever you can hold on to. So your right arm is like a little hat that goes over the top of your head, or a strap that goes over the top of your head. And now lift your head just gently and feel the pressure change somewhere underneath your left armpit. And see if you can get really specific about directing your breathing into that spot that's now the pressing the deepest into the floor. And of course, you know, I'm here to shine the light on the path, right? But this is your practice. And so some of you are enjoying a more restful position, and some of you are starting to micro adjust the way that you have your head. If it's a bit tilted forward or back, if it's lifted a bit higher or less high, and not doing a lot of big movements of your head, but just changing the position of your head and stopping and noticing and seeing if you can change a little bit about the direction or the trajectory you're breathing. Some of you might really start to sense the kind of the bottom tip of your left shoulder blade. And if you are kind of experimenting with the position of your head, just make sure to stop in between, right? Don't just do and do and do. Take your time, notice, stop, and rest when you got to rest. And then let that all go and roll onto your back. And bring your arms down, lengthen out your legs again. And sense the two sides of your chest. Notice how low down your chest continues. And then when you're ready, stand your left foot. Bring your left arm up, roll yourself onto your right side. Maybe keep your left foot standing behind your right leg. Maybe have your head on your arm, maybe on the floor, maybe on a cushion. You might have your left hand standing in front of you for a little extra support. And then just start by noticing the way that you breathe into the resistance of the floor on the right side of your rib cage. Notice if there's somewhere that you could still turn down the effort a little bit. And then you might stay like this and just enjoy that kind of prolonged feeling on your right ribs, or you might take your left hand, put it up and over the top of your head, hold on to the right side of your face or ear, temple, and start by gently lifting your head away from your arm. And notice how the pressure changes somewhere on your right ribs, somewhere around your right armpit. And start to direct your breathing with a little bit more specificity into that place. Notice your mouth cavity and the feeling of your nostrils. And if you're curious, you can explore a little bit. If you do a very subtle change of the position of your head, do you lean a little bit differently on your right ribs? And can you direct your breathing in a slightly different part? Where is your breath the clearest along the side of your right ribs? Where do you get the most resistance against the floor? Can you tell? Okay, and let it go and rest on your back. Notice how you're feeling. And now come over onto your belly and just put your head however it's comfortable for you. And first, just resting there, prone as you are, sense what moves into the floor before even directing anything, just what happens naturally. And then bend your right knee out to the side, like as though your knee was coming up toward your belly. Your foot and your knee are both still on the floor. Yeah. Yeah. And then you can see for yourself, again, what is the most comfortable position for your head. Try it with your left cheek down first, but if that doesn't work for you, then change it. And have your left arm long and stand your right hand. And remember, doesn't work for your shoulders, you adjust however you need to adjust. You can have your left arm somewhere near the back of your head and do that. And notice the subtle difference between the weight along the front of your left ribs and the weight along the front of your right ribs. And if you can't really tell the difference, then just adjust yourself so that you're definitely leaning a little bit more onto the front of your left rib cage. It's subtle, it's a small difference. And then again, generate clarity in the difference by using your breathing to resist the pressure of the floor on the left side of your chest. And then keep going like that, but have your left arm down by your side. And see if there's a little change in the pressure, and can you change where you're directing your breathing to match it? And then let that go and rest whatever position's comfy for you. Then bring your left knee up to the left. Bend your knee, drag your left knee up in the direction of your chest, direction of your belly. Put your right cheek down on the floor. Stand your left hand. Have your right arm somewhere up by the back of your right head, of the right side of your head. Adjust however you need to adjust if it's not comfortable for you. And bring your attention to the right side of your rib cage in the front. See what you notice here and see what it feels like to breathe into that part of you. And then can you sense the difference when you adjust the arm that's behind you? When you bring your right arm down by your side, can you slightly change it? And what do you notice about your belly when you're feeling this pressure in your right rib cage? And then take a rest on your back. And see what's the influence of all this. What what changes in the way that you feel yourself? The way that you sense the floor. And then one more time, come onto your front side. And either have your forehead on your two hands, or if that's uncomfortable, have your face turned whichever way. Have your legs fairly wide apart. Now, go back to more or less where we started, with the sensing in the very top of your chest, which if your forehead is on your hands is likely not touching the floor. And feel now what it's like on the upper right hand and upper left hand compartment of your chest. And see if you can move your breathing down toward the floor, or if it's your chest is on the floor, then again into the resistance of the floor. Now, tuck your toes under. So like the little pads of your toes are pressing against the floor. Your foot is, I guess you'd call it arched. Might just be your big toes that can really bend. And you see if you can do that in such a way that your knees come away from the floor. And again, if that requires a great deal of effort, then you skip it and you just leave your feet resting, right? But if it's easy for you to do this with your feet and have your knees lifted, then you might notice how the pressure changes on your chest. And where you feel that increased pressure in your chest, again, try to generate resistance, try to generate your breathing into that pressure. And if you don't have your toes tucked under and you're just resting your legs, then see if you can feel the first place that your chest is pressing into the floor already and start to exaggerate that. Do you find when you're pressing into your chest like this that you have a little bit more pressure on one side? And then pause with that. And then again, if you can comfortably prop yourself up so your elbows are underneath your armpits. And you want to kind of adjust where your armpits are, where your shoulders are, how your shoulders are, so that you can feel for the lowest part of the front of your ribs. And you might notice that depending on if your head is lifted or if your head is hanging, if your head is a little bit over to the right or over to the left, that there's a little bit of a difference in how your ribs are positioned on the floor. And then however it is that you feel your front ribs, again, match the resistance of the floor with your breath. And then give yourself a little time to play here. So you might have your head resting on your forearms. You might stack your two fists and put your forehead on your two fists. You might hold your head in your hands, kind of like, a kid watching TV sort of thing. Right. So again, don't go through a bunch of different variations, but see if you can just get curious about the feeling in the front of you and what sort of possibilities are there for you to direct your breathing in a new way. And go back to this idea of somehow molding your breath into the shape of your chest and then into the resistance of the floor. What's the most subtle difference you can create for yourself? And then let it go and come and rest on your back. And let yourself be held by the floor. You can give yourself about another 5 minutes. You can rest, you can explore a bit of the sensations along your back. And at some point, stand up, walk around, take a little bit of time to notice yourself upright, negotiating gravity. Just take your time. And thank you for being here. And see you soon.